Well, good morning, everyone. And so I'd like to start by saying that the inspiration for this event actually just came from a conversation with my pastor. And the initial conversation was, if we can gather 3 people that want to start a business, we'll have a class. And then it turned into this. So this event today is actually only 4 weeks old. We were able to put this together in 4 weeks, and it only came by people believing in us and people helping us. And so I want to say thank you to everybody that's here, that's participating, that's volunteering, all our sponsors. I want to say thank you for that. And so the idea behind this event was to try to inspire new business owners or try to help existing business owners grow their business by shortening their learning curve through our experiences, our failures, and our successes. And so I saw this article that said small businesses are the backbone of the American economy. They create jobs, drive innovation, boost economic growth. In fact, small businesses account for 99.7% of all businesses. And I had never heard that statistic. That is a large number of contribution that small businesses do for our economy. They also employ 47.1% of private sector workers. Small businesses also play an important role in their communities. They provide jobs, support local charities, sponsor community events. They are the source and pride of their communities. And so I say that to say this: if you're interested in starting a small business or you own a small business, you should be proud of yourself and you should reach out for that goal. And what I want to share with you this morning are some foundational principles that are crucial for personal finance, but essential for a successful business blueprint. And for me, these principles are what share the story of our success. And so I grew up, and so my mother's in here, so I'm going to try to, not say too much. You're always embarrassed when your kids are going to start talking, right? Like, what are they going to say? And so I grew up in a family that was a little unstable. I don't blame my parents too much. They had some circumstances happen early in their lives that caused this. We were a little dysfunctional. Can anybody relate to me? And, that caused me to have a unique situation where I started making a lot of bad decisions as a kid. I actually dropped out of school at the 10th grade. And by the age of 22, I was a full-blown drug addict, crackhead, just a few steps away from living off the street. And so at this time, I'm lost, I'm broken, I have no hope, I have no purpose, I have no reason to live. But Jesus Christ came into my heart. He changed my life from one moment to the next. I was transformed, never to touch drugs, alcohol, or cigarettes ever again. I began attending this church, and I meet my wife, and I was so in love. We were so in love to the point that we never talked about money. We didn't talk about how you manage money, and we didn't talk about how much we were in debt. And I remember the day we're sitting in our kitchen table, and we began to talk about money and how we don't have any. And at that moment, we both realized that we were $25,000 in debt. We're making minimum wage. At least I am. She's working for the government, making more than me. But we weren't making a whole bunch of money. And we knew that we had to get a hold of this money thing. We had to figure this money thing out. And so the ideas that I want to share with you today are not ideas that I created. They're just simple ideas and principles that I follow. Like Dave Ramsey says, I borrowed them from God and your grandmother. And so I want to share some references from one of the most read books in all the world. And I want to share, and the author of that book, is an author that had an extremely high net worth. A lot of people don't know, but King Solomon was one of the richest men that ever lived on the face of the earth. They say if they had to adjust his net worth for inflation, that it would be $2 trillion today. You know, as business owners, we're always looking for that new idea, that key source of information to grow and to expand. But a lot of times we take the Bible and we just kind of put it aside. And if we were to look at the book of Proverbs with this understanding, here's one of the richest men that ever lived on the earth, and he's trying to tell us something, I believe that we would be helped. These principles are so important to me because they changed my life forever. These principles took me from becoming debt-free to selling produce off the back of my truck. This little yellow 1980 Ford Accord. You have that picture? You have that picture? There's the truck. And I'm going to show this picture every time I speak. It's a good one. Thank you for that. It took me from selling produce off the back of that truck to reaching my top 3 business goals. Originally, when I started in business, I just wanted to own a business. I grew up wanting to be a business owner. My family put this into me. Our family's been in the restaurant industry for not over 60, but about 60 years. And they started here in McAllen on the corner of 10th and La Vista, where Green Beret, where Green Beret is. And they opened a little restaurant there, and they're still in business today. They're one of our sponsors. My cousin's wife is here with us, Verna Basan. And so I grew up around this stuff. And I thought that I was going to one day own an air conditioning company. Thank God that I don't own an air conditioning company. Not only is it tough getting into the attic, but man, it's hot up there. But I always wanted to own, my first goal was I want to own a profitable business. My second goal was I want to create a business as a backup. I don't only want one profitable business, I want 2. Because what if something happens in the produce industry, I can do something else. And, like my good friend John here, I wanted to retire by the age of 40. And so, these principles have helped me to accomplish all those things. So not only am I personally debt-free, but my businesses are self-funded and debt-free. And so I want to start with, if you want to have this type of foundation to build a good business blueprint, you're going to have to partner with God. And I'm just going to say that probably a lot of things you're going to hear today from the different people are going to kind of be along the lines of the same thing. We didn't get together and write our messages all together. But you're going to have to partner with God. In the book, Leadership Not by the Book, David Green, the founder of Hobby Lobby, says, I always let the true owner vote first. And what he says is that in his company, God is in charge. He allows God to be first. And if you're going to want to be successful, you're going to need God first in your life, in your money, and in your business. Proverbs 3:9-10 says, honor the Lord with your possessions and with the first fruits of all your increase, so your barns would be filled with plenty. So this starts with tithing. And the reason I bring that up is because one of the most common questions that I get from people that own businesses that are Christians that want to become successful is they ask me, how do you tithe from your business? And a lot of times people know how to tithe from their personal income, but from their business, they don't have an idea, and neither did I. My wife and I, what we did is we started paying ourselves a salary. Then we created a system where monthly we could view our profits or quarterly, and we can begin tithing from our business as well. And so there's a few things that happens when you begin to put God first. First, you're able to increase and have blessing. David Green, the founder of Hobby Lobby, his personal net worth is $14 billion. This is personal. This is not Hobby Lobby. And this man starts in his garage by gluing frames together. He used to pay his son 7 cents a frame when they started their business. And now he has this net worth. The other thing that happens when you put God first is you get inspired. When I started putting God first and I had this desire to be a business owner, God showed me real life examples of what he could do in people's lives. And the first person that he showed me was a man by Ray Verial. And he showed me that he was going to lose everything. He was going to get divorced. He didn't know Jesus Christ. But he came to the feet of Jesus. He got saved. God restores his marriage. Not only he was a successful CPA, not only does he become successful as an accountant, he opens a logistics company, a real estate company, and when I end up meeting him, he's a very successful, very known man. The other person, sorry, George, got to put you on the spot. My good friend here, George Ponce. I remember when I'm telling my friends here in McAllen, I want to be a business owner, I want to do this, I want to do that. And they tell me, have you heard of this guy? His name's George. This guy, he started from nothing. He worked for an electrical company, and at the afternoons he would get home and jump into his own service truck and then do go service calls in the afternoon. He did this every day. But look at him now. This guy is super successful. He has several companies. He's in real estate, and he even flies a plane. I said, no way, not plane? I mean, it's one thing to be successful, but to have a plane? But God is able to inspire you with real life examples, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're not trying to come up here just to say, hey, look at me, look at everything I've done, look at what I have. We're hoping that some people would get inspired by what God can do. You know, some people ask me, how did you come up with the name For God Media? Well, two things happened to me. I remember being at church one day before I owned a business, and I felt just this thought. Can God give you a business for God? Can God do that in your life? And I turned to my friend Frank and I said, hey, Frank, have you ever thought about this? Could God ever do this? And Frank looks at me and he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. That was one time. So that idea for God stayed with me. Another time is when we're building this building. God put me in the position where I could have extra time to be a blessing to my church and help my pastor, help our council to be able to do all the legwork. And I remember coming out of the bank. I'm in a suit. I feel good. I just talked to the bank. It looks like it's a go. I can call pastor and say, hey, it looks good. And I'm in a suit, and I open the door, and it's like a November morning, you know, one of those rare mornings when it's cold. It feels good, and I feel good. And I open the door, and I walk out of the bank, and it's like something told me, you just finished doing business for God. What about you? Could God use you to do business for him? Because if you put him first, God will give you a vision. And we know that the reality is that your vision is so important for your finances and for your business. Your business will only go as far as your vision will take it. Proverbs 28:18 says, where there is no vision, people perish. Patrick Bet-David has this book called Your Next 5 Moves. And in this book, he starts off by saying, you need to know who you want to be. And you need to live your life as though your vision is being realized. In other words, as though your vision is already happening. And this is a great perspective, but for me, when you put God first, God will give you that ability. God will give you that direction and confidence in where you want to go. The second thing is that you're going to have to work hard. How many business owners know that running a business sometimes isn't fun? We get excited one day and the next day we want to quit because it's hard. But Proverbs 13:11 says, wealth gained by dishonesty will diminish, but he who gathers by labor will increase. So just like Brother Mark says, whatever you do, you have to do it unto the Lord. God will repay you for your honesty, your good attitude, your punctuality, your teamwork. The reality is, this is how I advance in the produce industry. I mean, I go from selling off fruit off the back of that truck to within 9 months sitting on the 7th floor of the Chase Tower. Because some guy saw me and said, hey, you're working hard. Come work for me. God will repay you. I remember somebody asking me, how are you doing it, man? You're selling a lot of produce. You have no experience in this industry. I said, I have no idea what I'm doing, honestly. But what I do know is that if I work hard, God's going to bless me. So working hard is one thing, but at some point, as a business owner, you're going to have to work smart. The Bible says, Proverbs 30:25 says, ants are creatures of little strength, yet they store up their food in the summer. In other words, here you have this little insect that is thinking, organizing, preparing, planning for the next season. How much more are you and I? The third thing is you're going to have to be a good manager. The Bible calls this good stewardship. You're going to have to manage your time and your money well. You know, a lot of people are concerned about how much money they're making. How much profit am I going to gain? What's my profit margin? But they're not really paying attention to what they're doing with their money. My grandma used to always tell me, trabajar no es ganar, trabajar es cuidar. In other words, it's not just working that matters, it's what are you doing with what you're bringing home. In the magazine, The Entrepreneur, they came out with this article, and I thought it was so interesting. It says, most businesses fail due to money management. It goes on to say, did you know that 82% of businesses that fail due to I'm sorry, let me try that again. Did you know that 82% of businesses fail due to money mismanagement? And most business owners fail at money management because of a lack of awareness. In other words, a lack of financial literacy is what leads them to fail. So you're going to have a good accounting system, be able to track all your expenses and income, properly manage debt. While debt can be a good tool, a lot of times it's debt that keeps people away from becoming successful. Proverbs 21:20 says, the wise store up. In other words, saving is going to be your greatest management choice. The fourth thing is generosity. Proverbs 11:24, the generous soul will be made rich. Who wants to be rich? Does anybody want to be rich? Just a few people are honest this morning. I'm not going to lie. I want to be rich. You know that Elon Musk operates Tesla and SpaceX with open patents. In other words, he's got these patents, he owns them, but he allows any of his competition to be able to use them. And when you think about what he's doing in his industry, it's incredible. He's the one that's made the most contribution to the environment. He's made the most contribution to his industry. And yet he's giving his technology, he's giving his great ideas away. And when you think about Tesla, they've sold the most electric cars with no advertisement. That's what happens when you're generous. The next thing is you're going to have to want to develop. How do you take somebody with a 10th grade education and put them in these situations where they're able to do what they do? Proverbs 13:23 says, the uncultivated field of the poor yields abundant fruit. And when I read that, I was like, wait a minute, wait. You're poor, but you have abundant food. Like, that's an oxymoron. But then I went back and read it. It says, the uncultivated. In other words, there's areas of our lives that are not cultivated. It's going to be up to us to do that. And I remember when I came in, I was poor. But not just with money. That's the easy part. I was poor in understanding, ability, knowledge, skill. And the list goes on and on. Still working on some of those areas. Every successful leader that you see has paid the price of personal development. These are things that you can't even be taught with informal education. President Harry Truman says, not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers. If you're a leader, if you're leading anything, you should be reading. And there's several ways to be able to develop. You can listen to books, podcasts, read books. But one of the biggest things that's going to help you develop is leveraging others' experiences in your life. My mentor used to always say, you should have 3 coaches. Well, now I think I'm going to change that to 4, with Mark saying God should be your first life coach. That's a good one. But he used to say you should always have 3 life coaches. You should have a life coach that helps you with life problems, a spiritual coach that helps you with spiritual problems, and a financial coach. And so in this room, there's several people that I use. Sorry, guys. I use you guys. I use their experiences, their successes, as leverage to become more successful. And sorry, I'm going to call you out by name. I'm going to put you guys on blast here. My wife, my pastor, his wife, my brother-in-law Mark, George Thatcher, Joe Gutierrez, John Rigney, Orlando Salinas, George Ponce. Through the years, these relationships have helped me to grow. And if you're trying to do everything on your own, you're going to struggle. There's guys that aren't here that also help me. But we have to be able to leverage other people's experiences and successes and failures to be able to grow. The last thing is investing. Investing is one of the most important things. How we're managing our time, how we're managing the resource that we're able to make through our companies is extremely important. Proverbs 21:20 says, "There is desirable treasure and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but the foolish squander it." And so, how we manage and handle what we have, time, resource, is going to be extremely important. You have to constantly invest. You can never stop investing. And the last thing is, I know I said the last thing twice. That was the last principle, but there's something that happens when you put these principles to play in your life. Naturally, you begin to build a legacy. And God will begin to help you to do what he says in Proverbs 13:22. It says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children." As you put these things in place, you are more accessible to be able to leave a legacy. I believe that we should all apply these principles in our lives if we want to have a successful business blueprint. And that's all I have, Tim.